Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Jonny Lipsham.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live. I have completely lost count on where we're up to for exactly how many of these shows we've done. Suffice to say, I've been doing these now since, I think, 2018? I think? No, 2017. It was before we moved here. So I think I started these in 2017 and here we are in 2021. So probably about 4 years now. But anyway, hello and welcome. Hope everybody's okay. Hope everybody is doing well and has had a great week. I've had a really good week. I have had a fascinating weekend. I was supposed to get my COVID-19 shot number 1 vaccination on Wednesday. Ended up having to schedule it because my daughter was unwell. So she had to be at home. I had to stay here with her. So managed to reorganize it for today. So this morning we went and got that done. And my arm feels like somebody has punched me repeatedly. But I otherwise feel all right. I'm a little bit sore, a little bit stiff, and feeling pretty tired. So this is probably going to be a maybe shorter than normal show today. I know I say this sometimes, and you guys ask great questions, and then I end up never doing the short show. But yeah, I'm actually really feeling it today. So we will see what you guys come up with that will keep me going for an hour. But yeah, otherwise I'm feeling pretty tired. But yeah, so that's kind of the story of my day. So I'm glad to have got my first one done. Hopefully get the second one done in a week or two. I think it's 2 weeks that they do here. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world, but certainly here it's like 2 weeks and then you get your second one. So I will be happy to get my second one in the can as well. So a lot of people that I know have had the Pfizer. My wife had the Pfizer. And a few people I know had the Oxford one. I had the AstraZeneca, which is, of course, what I will be having next time as well. So it will be interesting to see how I have responded to the AstraZeneca versus my wife and how she responded to the Pfizer, which basically didn't do anything for her in terms of side effects, particularly. She kind of, my wife is from Glasgow, so she's super strong, super tough, and nothing phases her particularly, and she's a medic, so it was never really going to bother her that terribly much. So, but yeah, I've read and talked to friends of mine, read things that they've said about the different vaccines and what they have done or have not done for them in terms of side effects. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm going to kind of, this to me is interesting to see how my body is going to respond to it compared to other people. So Bob says he had to wait a month. Wow. 28 days, Kyle says, for Moderna. And Lollipop Gill says we waited 3 weeks. Bob says I had the Moderna 2 shots, no side effects, just a sore arm for 3 days. That's cool. Yeah, quite a few people have said that that's been their experience with the Moderna as well. So, all right, let's go back up to the top because you guys have been chatting away pre-show, which is, I know, something that you guys like to do, and that's cool. So I need to remember and kind of set the show up in plenty of time so that you guys can be in here and talking amongst yourselves before we start. Thomas in the Philippines was here first of all. Sean Aaron is here. Ken Moss, one of my faithful moderators. Kyle is here. Bob, my other awesome moderator. Lollipop Guild is here as well. Garen Livingston down in Australia says, "G'day all." G'day to you, mate. Hope you're doing well. And let's see who else is here. John Lake is here as well. And Lowens is here. Click on that. Who else is here? Let's see. Bob Studios is here. Awesome. And I think we are caught up with who's here. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Sean Aaron has the first question. And he's asking about the 1824, he says 2.0, so I presume by that you mean the black one, the USB-C version, which has, is called the Studio 1824C. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. And he says, Ion 1824, when Studio One is closed and the gain turned down on channel 1, I can hear my guitar through my monitors when the main volume of the interface is loud. Okay, if you are on actually I think this is the case for either PC or Mac. If you have the interface set as your default audio device for either of your computer, either platform, then when you are not using Studio One, your interface will go into class compliant mode, which basically means that any other software can use it. Which means it will function just like the mic input direct into your computer would react. Most computers, whether they're Mac or whether they're PC, have some kind of built-in mic input. And so if you're using the 1824 as your default audio card, so basically system sounds are going through it, the default mic input is going through it, as well as it being in ASIO mode when you are using Studio One or Notion or GarageBand or anything else like that, then it will still work. So here's the deal. If you have a microphone or your guitar plugged in to your interface, even when Studio One is closed, they're still going to work. For example, right now, I do not have Studio One open, but you can still hear the piano because the piano is connected to the interface through input 2 and my mic is connected via input 1. And they are both connected to OBS. And of course, my computer is using the interface in class compliant mode. Basically as it would, it's treating it as if it's the internal sound card. My computer does not have an internal sound card. It was built without one. It's strictly an audio PC from that point of view. So there is no internal sound card. So my interface is my sound card. So what that means for me is that when I power up the computer and I turn on the speakers, my mic works all the time. My piano works all the time. I don't have to have Studio One open and running for them to work. So that's probably the case for you if you have it set up as your default audio device, as your only audio device. Now, if you have your OS set up so that it is using the built-in sound card or the built-in mic on a Mac, then what will happen is when you shut Studio One, the interface, the sound card, the computer will switch from one sound card to the other. So it will switch from the interface to your built-in. That's kind of what should happen. So if your speakers are connected to your interface, what should happen is your, like if you've got the Presonus Eris speakers, for example, what should happen is those should receive no audio, and only what is connected to the internal sound card should receive audio. So if you have a second set of computer speakers that are connected to your internal sound card, when you switch off Studio One, you close Studio One, it's no longer active, then your internal sound card should take over the audio, and therefore sound will go out of those other speakers. So that's how it should work. if you don't have your interface in kind of set up as the default audio device. As I say, I have it set up as the default audio device. So, this guy is playable at any time. My mic works at any time, which is great because it means I can use this mic for Skype, for Zoom, and, for my work with Personas, I have to use a microphone all the time. So I have to use a mic for Skype, I have to use a mic for Zoom, and sometimes Microsoft Teams as well. So it's important that I'm able to do that. I could, if I had an internal sound card, just use that sound card for those particular applications and have Studio One only using my 1824. But as I say, I don't have a built-in sound card. So I hope that kind of answers your question. I think that is likely what is going on, which is why you can still hear your guitar if your guitar is plugged into your interface. So yeah, I think that's possibly what is happening. Okay, Lollipop Gill says, sleep if you need to. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Kyle says he had light fatigue, light fever for a day and a half. Okay, yes, I'm sure that's likely to be my experience as well. And you guys are being very kind to me. Thank you. Lollipop Gill says the second one gave me digestive issues for about a week. Wow. Okay. Sean says it's the silver 1824. Okay, so you have the silver one. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I don't think it really matters which way it is, but I'm pretty sure that it should work in the way that I'm talking about. Let's see. John Lake says, one shot here so far. I thought I'd be tripping. No such luck. Yeah, I don't think it contains those kind of chemicals. Let's see, what else do we have here? Starlight G Recording says, hi, Gerard Stroh from Starlight G Recording, and I got Pfizer vaccine twice within 3 weeks apart. No side effects at all. Just like your wife, my arm ached for about 3 days. Okay, cool. I'm pretty sure that that's kind of what's in store for me. Let's see. Robert Ziegler is here. He says, hi from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I think PA is Pennsylvania, isn't it, if memory serves? And I have been to Pennsylvania. I've been to Pittsburgh. I have never been to Harrisburg, though, so that's cool. And I'm glad you're here. We have a small selection of people here today. We've only got 20 people here. The record for attendance at this show is 31. So I think I mentioned last week, I would like to beat that record. So if you know people that you think this show would benefit or would help them in some way, then please do send them a link to the show, send them a link to my channel, get them to subscribe to it, and hit the notification bell. That way they will get a notification about this show. And if you think that it's going to help them, then yeah, by all means encourage them. I share the show in pretty much all of the Studio One groups that are on Facebook. So if you know another place where it would help, another group of people maybe outside of Facebook, then by all means share the link to the show there if you think it's going to help those people. I would love to be regularly seeing more than 31 people here on a Sunday night. So please do that. I would appreciate it a lot. Let's see. Okay, yes. I'm glad I have not got the Moderna on board, because I have heard that it kind of does that to a few people. John Lake says the show's a little slower tonight. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Are you saying that the audio sounds like it's in slow motion? It shouldn't be. Let me just check my settings. Yeah, playback speed is normal, and everything else is set up normal. So, John, you're going to have to explain a little bit of what you mean there by the show's a little slower tonight. unless you're referring to just the number of people, in which case, yes, it is a little slower tonight. I don't know why, because I put out all the adverts like I normally do. But yeah. Keep the questions coming, guys. I know I normally have a topic to talk about. I don't, because this week has kind of gone very lopsided, I'm afraid. With my daughter not being very well. She was off school for a couple of days, and my son was off school for one day as well. So for like half the week, I've had my kids here, when I would actually be thinking about what I'm going to do for you guys. So I would like to make these shows a lot more kind of subject and topic orientated. So if you guys are into that, then please do visit the website down below, drop me an email, and let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you would like me to go into a bit more depth on. So, you know, if you've got like a particular subject in mind, a particular aspect of Studio One that you would like to know more about, or a particular aspect of mixing, songwriting, composing, arranging, all that kind of stuff, and using Studio One to achieve all of those things, then yeah, please do let me know. So if you want to study harmony, we can do harmony. If you want to study improvisation, we can do a show devoted entirely to improvisation. If you want to study, if you know, study is maybe the wrong word. If you wanted us to do a show on compression, we can do a show on compression. If you want to do a show on sidechaining and that kind of fun stuff, then we can certainly do that. I would be happy to do all of that stuff. Just Bob says, hit the like button, folks. That helps me. Yes, it most certainly does. Likes definitely help, because it means that my show gets in front of more people and it gets on the front page of YouTube. And it has done that a couple of times. And I think that's kind of when we went up to like nearly 30 a few times. Sean Aaron says, can we talk a bit in depth sometime about the harmonic minor scale and modes? Yes, we can do a show on modal playing, modal music. For sure. Yeah, we can certainly do modes. I love modes, and I use them very regularly. Starlight says that the show is fine and everything is fine. Cool. That's what I like to hear. But yes, absolutely, we can do stuff on modes. Modes are cool, man. Modes make life a lot easier, especially when you're improvising. The cool thing about modes is it takes away you having to think about chord changes and thinking about how you're going to get from one chord to the next when you're improvising, which is, you know, a lot of what you have to do when you're playing, you know, the music of Charlie Parker or Dizzy Gillespie or, you know, kind of some of the mid-1950s Miles Davis music. There's a lot of chord changes, and they are pretty challenging, and you have to figure out how you're going to get from one chord to the next and make your phrases make sense. And you have to be able to do that instantly, and that's a challenge. And so, you know, your brain is having to work overtime thinking about these things. Now, with a lot of practice, you can get good at it. You can get good at getting from one chord to the next, with, you know, making beautiful, beautiful melodic statements and phrases that make perfect sense, and they're completely logical, and they sound awesome and cool. And a lot of the time, you can use pentatonic patterns to achieve that. I mean, that's kind of a lot of what I fall back on if I'm playing, you know, a Charlie Parker tune. I regularly fall back onto pentatonic patterns, you know, major ones, minor ones, dominant pentatonic patterns, because it's just easy. It's less work than thinking about chord tones, enclosion, figures, and, you know, voice leading tones, those kind of things, which, you know, if you're trying to improvise, you don't really want to be thinking about those things, which is why you spend a lot of time practicing and working on those so they become second nature. And in fact, your improvising becomes, completely fluid, because you're not actually thinking about going from one chord to the next, because you have them under your fingers through kind of muscle memory. So in the case of modes, it takes away all of that thinking about chords, because you don't need them anymore. And in fact, quite often, if I'm playing something that has a lot of chord changes, I will look at the chords and I will look for a common mode that fits a few of them. And then over those chords, instead of actually, trying to get from one chord to the next, I'm using that common scale for those chords. So, it might be that there's a section of chord changes, like, for example, a minor 2-5-1. I would use something like the harmonic minor or the melodic minor scale, or I would use a diminished whole tone scale to get across both of those chords. And I don't have to think about, kind of relating chord tones and voice leading and all of that. I'm just thinking about just that scale, just that series of notes, and 5 or 6 note patterns based upon those scales. And you can think of, you can look at a whole section and go, okay, the blues scale will fit over those 8 bars entirely. Great. For those 8 bars, I do not need to think about the chord changes. I can just be lyrical. I can be creative, and I can play much more freely. And then when I get to the next section of chord changes, I can think to myself, okay, this I can use the Mixolydian scale, and that's another 8 bars. So basically, I'm playing the 16 bar set of chords using 2 scales. That gives me a lot of freedom that trying to parse every single chord change is not going to. So, but we can certainly kind of tackle that in a lot more depth, for sure. I would be happy to. And actually, I'm talking kind of a lot about, jazz improvisation and Charlie Parker and that kind of stuff, which is very much my field. But, you can apply those kind of things to creating melody in a pop or a rock context. I mean, rock music lends itself, and blues music lends itself, again, to pentatonic scales, but also to the blues scale, and sometimes you might want to use the harmonic minor scale in certain circumstances. And so those are going to be your trade-in stock, which is why a lot of rock guitar players, they don't think about chords. They just think about pentatonic patterns, and they think about the blues scale, and they maybe think about the melodic minor scale, and that's all they use. And so they don't think about the chord changes of a song particularly. That's not the way they approach it. So a lot of rock music is actually much more molded than you think. Certainly when it comes to improvising and creating spontaneous melody. Let's see. Let's see what other questions we have. Robert says, I would like a show on LUF, the metering and related technology. LUFS, and yes, loudness units is a complicated subject, but for sure we could certainly look into some of that as well. Rather than post your suggestions for shows here, I'm likely to forget them. So the best thing you can do is email me. So email Jonny at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk and put show subject as your subject for the email, and then, kind of put in the email exactly what it is you would like. And I would like to compile a list of subjects and topics that we can do over the next 6 months. So, I mean, that's a weekly show for the next 6 months. It'd be great if we have a bunch of topics that we can cover. And we can kind of break them up as well. Like, we can do these kind of spontaneous Q&As periodically as well, so that it's not just topic-based all the time. So that would be cool. Let's see. John Lake says, push the button on the left. I have no idea what that means. No, I really have no idea what you mean, because we are definitely live. We are definitely streaming, so I don't know what you mean. And I'm pretty sure that you guys can see me, and all the audio is good. So yeah, everything looks fine to me. I don't think I'm missing anything. So I'm not sure what you mean. John Lake says, am I missing something like the show? I'm not. I have no idea. I have no idea what you mean, John. If you're not seeing the show, but you're only hearing audio, then I recommend that you drop out and then come back in. Is what I would suggest, or refresh. But yeah, I'm looking at all of my settings here, and they all look good to me. I have a green light on OBS. I'm streaming. It says we're live. Okay. Just Bob says audio video is good. It was the like button reference. Okay, cool. Thanks for the clarification there. I appreciate that. Cool. Yeah, I'm still kind of confused by John's statement there. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's keep going with your questions. Bobsy says Moderna has some side effects for us old folks on the second shot. I have heard that too. I've heard it's not just kind of older folks that it hits hard. So I'm glad I don't have the Moderna on board. That's a very cool thing. We got 23 people here now, which is cool. So we're heading in the right direction. We would be, 9 or 8 or 9 short of 31. Who the heck does a dislike? Well, yeah, I really don't care who the disliker is. I know who the disliker is. And I really could care less about the fact that they dislike everything that I do. Doesn't bother me. All it means to me is that they have subscribed to my channel and they have notifications turned on so that they know when I'm doing something so that they can go and dislike it, which means it registers a view. It means that they have to view my content in order to be able to dislike it, which gives me more views, which is what I need. It's what I want. Views, likes are really helpful. But you know what? Sometimes dislikes can be helpful too, because it means that that person has engaged with my video. Even if they have only watched 5 seconds, enough to be able to hit the dislike button, and then they've gone away. Doesn't matter. It's registered as a view. And views are good. The more my videos get viewed, the more they get out on the YouTube algorithm. Same with likes. So it doesn't actually matter. Okay, thank you, Just Bob. Appreciate that. Thank you. And Mika Han has just walked into the building. Awesome. Welcome. Yeah, we're doing well. We've been talking a little bit about the vaccine for COVID-19, because I had my first one today. And yeah, so it was into this arm. So this arm is a little bit sore, and I'm a little bit tired, but I'm otherwise fine. I'll have to see what I'm like in the morning. But yeah, hopefully we'll be fine. She Studios, my good friend Sheila asks, does Studio One version 5 work well in Mojave? It does. It does work in Mojave. But Mojave is a little bit of an older operating system. At some point in the foreseeable future, it may or may not, future versions may or may not support some of those older versions of macOS. So just be aware of that, is all I'm going to say. For example, there are some people that are still on High Sierra. And that really is an extremely old version of macOS. You should probably upgrade it. Mojave is fine. And it may well be that your computer It doesn't support things like the metal framework, for example. It could be that your graphics card won't support the metal framework. So it might be for you that upgrading your Mac OS is going to give you graphics issues that are related to the metal framework, which is what Studio One uses on Mac in Studio One version 5. So that being the case, upgrading might not be a good thing for you if you have an older computer. So it might be that when you get to that point, you might need to think about investing in a newer Mac that has a graphics card that does support the metal framework, which I think macOS Catalina and Big Sur use predominantly. So that's something for you to think about. But certainly, yeah, Mojave does work with Studio One 5. So you should be absolutely fine for the time being. Let's see, what else do we have? Yes, thank you, Mika. That's a good point. Okay, John Lake says, I went out and came back in. Now it works. Good. Okay, cool. It could be the for whatever reason your browser just had not cached and you were still sat in effectively the waiting room. But you're here, which is cool. Let's see. Billy Morgan is here. Hey, Billy. Good to see you, mate. She still says, I'm fully vaccinated. Pfizer. Excellent. Very glad to hear that. Pfizer, I think, is probably ultimately working out to be the one that is the best. Certainly in terms of fewer side effects and least adverse effect on the body. And seems to be pretty good. My wife had Pfizer for both her shots, and she's been, it's not a problem for her at all. Admittedly, she is a super tough Glasgow girl who is also a medic, so, it really, nothing phases her at all. So yes, so the Pfizer one looks like it's a good one. Mika says, Studio One seems to run more efficiently with Catalina. There will be some validation of some security certificates. Yes, that is definitely the case. It works. Studio One works really well on Catalina, and it works very, very well on Big Sur. I think there has recently been an update for Big Sur. I think it's now 11.2.3 or something like that. I updated the Mac, which is over here, which you can't quite see. You can see the keyboard and mouse there, but the Mac over there, I updated that to 11.2.3, and I can happily report 0 problems with Studio One. 0 problems with Notion 6. And all of the add-ons, they all work perfectly on that machine, and it's great. So you will have nae bother, as they say here in Scotland. Just Bob says, Pfizer's already stated a booster shot will be needed in approximately a year. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that all the other ones will follow suit. I think it's probably pretty likely that a booster is going to be needed. I guess we'll kind of have to see kind of where the virus is at in a year's time. I mean, it's been out in the wild now since the end of 2019, hence the name COVID-19. So it's been around for a couple of years. It's mutated a good number of times. There are a few significant variants of it now. I'm no virologist or anything like that. I'm not an expert in the field, but friends of mine who are virologists and who certainly are experts in the field have certainly told me that the longer that this is kind of around, it will begin to become more and more benign. It may become a lot more transmissible and a lot more contagious, but it's likely to be less deadly as it goes. And this is certainly borne out by other coronaviruses like Spanish flu and a few others, where it's been the case that it just gradually weakens. Spanish flu still kicks around. It still goes around the world. And there are some parts of the world where you still need a vaccine for it. But it's not a problem for people now. Whereas, 100 years ago, it killed 50 million people very, very efficiently, and was highly contagious. Now, the problem that we have 100 years on is that we have international travel, which you didn't really have back in 1918. Back in 1918, well, planes were for Air Force pilots, particularly British or German. There weren't really any other international flights. You couldn't really get around the world very quickly. You could, if you wanted to go to America from the UK, you'd have to travel by boat, which would take 2 or 3 weeks. So it was a long trip to go anywhere in the world. So it was mostly a European thing, and didn't spread massively far outside of Europe and the United States. And so, that's kind of the issue with Spanish flu. And I'm not going to go into too much about that. But it's interesting. It's an interesting subject. See. What else do we have here? Mika says, for example, Synth 1 is an older VST plugin. No certification for a long time. While all outdated, there's a hack that'll get uninvalidated. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend that, though. Because it won't be supported. Yeah, maybe you're right, Marcos. The Pfizer is an mRNA vaccine. It's a new DNA-based vaccine. The J&J is a traditional vaccine that uses inert virus to stimulate your immune response. Yes, that is true. Let's see. Your arm will ache for about 3 days after the shot. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Sheila says, nurse told me to get shot in alternate arms. Vaccine will distribute throughout the body equally. Second shot arm hurt worse than the first. Interesting. Yes, and I've heard that it can make you sleepy. Yeah, I have heard that too. Alrighty. Alright, cool. So that's kind of my news really on the whole kind of vaccine front. I'm glad to have finally got to the point where I have shot number 1. I'm going to keep wearing my mask, and I'm going to keep socially distancing and all of that until I get shot number 2. And once I've had that, then I will interact with people a little bit more normal. Not that I don't think I've ever had normal interactions with other people before, so that will be interesting. Let's see. Lauren says, I use something called Disabled on my track the other day when I was using MIDI. Is there any downfalls to that? I have no idea what that means. If it's disabled, then it means if it's like a virtual instrument that's disabled, then it means that you probably just need to go and reinstall it, maybe? I don't know. I'm not really sure what you're talking about particularly. Sean Aaron says, any song challenges lately? No, but I have been thinking about doing one because a little while ago, it's got to be a couple of years ago now, I did a challenge where I got everybody to release, well, I didn't get everybody. I challenged everybody to release a song on a specific date, which was December 10th. And I think we did that in 2018. So I have been thinking about doing something similar again. I think it would be pretty cool if a whole bunch of us just kind of, created music and then released it all on the same date. So we all have like a target to aim for. and then we all share our music that we have created. I could set something specific, like, okay, let's all work on a song that we release on a particular date, but you're only allowed 2 chords, and you're only allowed a pentatonic scale for your melody. So anything melodic, and that includes counter melodies, would be based around a pentatonic scale, and you're only allowed 2 chords. And you've got to make the whole thing engaging. And it's got to be exactly 3 minutes and 30 seconds long. I could do something like that. I have been thinking about it. So be prepared for something like that to be launched, and I will participate to the best of my ability. I kind of didn't do a great job of the December 10th challenge. I wrote this really lovely arrangement. I had a really nice song written, but I ended up doing the vocal at the very, very last minute, and it was a rubbish vocal. But the song itself was nice, and I used a rhythm section, and I used the Persona Symphonic Orchestra to kind of like have some orchestral elements to it as well. But yeah, it was a pretty awful melody, I'm afraid, and not a great vocal. But the rest of it was fine. I just kind of ran out of time, I guess. How's the house progressing? It's pretty good. It's 85% finished. We were on site today, actually, this morning, because where I went to get my vaccination is just down the road from where the new house is. So we went on site today, and I talked to a couple of builders, and they said that they reckon that they will be finished the end of June. So we don't have a lot of time. We've got like 5.5 weeks. So we will have to get our skates on packing, for sure. But thank you for asking. Bob Studio says, I had upgraded Faderport about 6 months ago, and perhaps a coincidence I lost my desktop using 4.6. You lost your desktop? I hope you found it again. I'm not quite sure what you mean by you lost your desktop. Do you mean the tray at the bottom of your screen? Or what exactly did you mean? Unless you mean that you lost your computer. I'm not quite sure what that means. Maybe my vaccination has got to my brain and I can't think straight. See, the question is, updating Faderport should have nothing to do with whatever version of Studio One I use. Yes. That's a good question. To be honest, if you have, it depends what Faderport you have. If you have the 8 or the 16, it's pretty important that you try and stay up to date with the firmware and with universal control with both of those devices. If you have the old classic one, the silver Faderport, never update it. Do not touch the firmware on that bad boy. Because if you do, it will die. And I mean that quite literally. It will stop working. It will not interact with Studio One, whatever version it is. Even if you roll back all the way to Studio One version 2, it will not work with Studio One at all. So it needs to be on the factory firmware for that particular Faderport. That's the classic for the silver one. If you have the Faderport 2018, which is the single fader black one, same applies for the 8 and the 16. Try and keep the firmware and the universal control as up to date as you possibly can. We rigorously test firmwares before they are released, and the same with universal control updates as well. So, we don't put stuff out there that doesn't work. And certainly stuff out there that doesn't interact well and doesn't integrate properly with Studio One. Occasionally there are bugs. A few things do fall through the cracks sometimes. There are a couple of ongoing issues with 1 or 2 of the functions of the Faderport 16. We are aware of those. They are being investigated. But yeah, keep your Faderport up to date with the firmware. Keep it up to date with universal control as well. So your universal control needs to be on the latest version, and your firmware should be on the latest version that your computer will support. So if you have an older computer, you might not be able to be on the most current versions of universal control or the firmware. That's definitely true if you have an older computer, but if your computer is current and is able to support the latest version of Windows 10 or the latest Mac OS, which is Big Sur 11.2.3, then you will need to make sure that you are fully up to date. But I am not a FADA-port expert. I have one, I use it, but it's not a device that I do support for, or any great in-depth testing. Let's see. Marcos says, will Studio One be down of support for Core 2 or will still work? I know about the iSeries, etc., but won't change. Duo cores are not supported for the current Studio One. Studio One 5, it will work. By that, I mean you will be able to launch it, you will be able to run it, but here's the thing. If you've only got 2 cores, you're going to run out of processing power very, very quickly. And you will overwhelm your computer very, very quickly. If you look on the website, presonus.com, and go to products, and go to Studio One, and then click on the tech specs, you will see what the minimum tech specs for Studio One 5 are. And that is, it needs to be an Intel i3 quad-core minimum. I mean, it says duo-core there. I think it still says duo-core. But really, duo-cores are ancient. And yeah, I don't think Studio One 5 will work very efficiently on it. It will crash a lot. You will run out of processing power a lot. So what you will have to do is you will have to render things very, very early. So if you are using a CPU-hungry virtual instrument, as soon as you have recorded your track, you will need to render that to an audio track. The same with any other any other VST plugin that's a third-party plugin that is. The problem you're going to have is that a lot of plugins no longer support duo-core processors, and so they may crash and they may not be very stable, and that's kind of your core issue that you're going to have. No pun intended. You're going to have that as your core problem. A duo-core is going to max out very quickly and get overworked very quickly, and when that happens, your computer will get older and less efficient very quickly. So that would be my advice to you there, Marcos. You need to look at a newer computer that has an Intel quad-core, preferably i5 processor. You will get more life out of that. If you get yourself a quad-core i5 processor with between 8 and 16 gigs of RAM, you will get more life out of that than you will out of a dual-core machine. That I can guarantee you. But it's a good question. But it's entirely up to you. I'm just telling you kind of what's going to be supported and what's no longer going to be supported and what's kind of considered old nowadays. Just Bob says that challenge was a lot of fun. We need to do it again for sure. Yes, I am seriously considering it. Lowen says it's in the column when you right click on the track. I used it to save CPU, but I was just wondering if there's any downfalls in me using that. Okay, let me go back to your original question, Loens. Something called disable on track. No, there's no, well, not really, other than all it does is it powers down that particular virtual instrument. So, to be honest, the easiest way if you're wanting to save CPU is right-click the track header and do transform to audio. But keep the box for preserve instrument state checked, because what that will do is that will allow you to transform it to an audio track. The virtual instrument will be unloaded from Studio One, therefore not processing on your computer anymore. The MIDI will remain in the background, and then if you decide, hey, there's a wrong note here, I want to either shift the timing or shift the pitch of that particular note, you can go back, you can transform it back to an instrument track, and your instrument will get reloaded, complete with whatever sound was installed on it. And you can go back into the MIDI, you can make that correction, then you can retransform it, and you'll lose nothing. And that, to me, is the most efficient way to save CPU. CPU is a premium. I have plenty of CPU. I have an octa-core. I have an 8-core machine. It processes at 4 gigahertz, and I have 16 gigs of RAM. I have no trouble with processing power, but I do that as a standard practice. If I'm happy with a virtual instrument track, I render it, and that's what I do. As soon as I'm happy with it, I render it. I don't see any point in keeping the instruments loaded all the time. So that's what I do. That's my process. Yeah, Windows 10 is the best. Windows 7 is no longer supported by anybody, including Microsoft. Okay. New house. Yes. You may have missed my announcement a couple of shows ago. We have bought a new build house. It's still being built. And so it's really exciting. The studio is going to go into one of the bedrooms. We've already kind of allocated that room to the studio, so it's going to be cool. It's going to be more or less the same kind of size as this room. It's just going to be maybe a foot shorter in length. I can handle that. It's fine. So it's going to be, this is 12 foot long. The new room's going to be 11. That's okay. It's not a big deal. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit smaller room, but it'll be a dedicated room, which means I can actually properly acoustically treat this room. At the moment, for acoustic treatment, what I have is some very cheap foam panels up on the wall, because this is a rental apartment. I can't really do anything else. Not allowed to put nice, thick, broadband panels on the wall, which is what I really want to do. The little cheap foam panels that I have on the wall just now, they tame the room. They do actually do something. People that say that stuff is useless are wrong. It's not useless. It does do something. It does tame some of the frequencies. It does absorb some of the frequencies if you put them in the right places. If you put those panels in the right place, it will do something. It will absorb something. And in this case, it absorbs some of the upper mids that are an issue in this room. And I have bass traps in the corners, which deals with the low end in this room. Really, the issue in this room is some of the low mids. Around about 350 to 400 in this room is a bit of a problem. Not as much as the old room that I had 3 years ago, where it was a real problem because that room was very narrow. It was like 6 foot wide and 9 foot long. So a lot of low end built up in that room, even with the bass traps. So that was definitely an issue. It's not so bad in here. This room is a bit better in that respect. But yes, I do want to put some nice thick broadband panels up on the walls, which are going to deal with some of those low mid frequencies and tame them down and get a much tighter, much more controlled sound. So being that I will be able to buy the house, which we've pretty much completed on nearly, We're just waiting for one piece of information to come through, and then we should have the house complete in terms of the legal side of purchasing it. And once that's in place, I can do whatever I want with acoustic treatment. I can't wait. Let's see. Best thing in audio is to see. Okay, that's cool. That's very cool, Marcos. I like that. Mika says, when is the lost automation on scene recalls problem going to be solved? Any clues? You know I can't answer that question. So I'm going to move on. But you know I can't answer that question. Let's see. Garen says, I rolled back to 5.1, so I didn't like where the buses are now to the right on the fader port 16 and 5.2. Using 5.1 lets me keep where I want. Really? That's interesting. I have never seen that reported by anybody. So, okay. The ratio of women is much higher in the Pro Tools, Reaper, and Logic communities. I've often commented on the Studio One. Okay, right. Okay, whatever. Sean Aaron says, when I listen to my mixes in Studio One, when they are finished, it would be cool if there was a visual player to go along with the music that had colors and shapes to go along with the song. You can do that already. You can do that with the Spectrum Analyzer. It's very cool. Let me see. Let me get a song open, and I can show you exactly what I mean. Let me open up some. Where is it? Where is that little sucker? Spectrum meter. Is there a mode that I can set this in? I'm fairly sure you can do this. Hang on just a minute. Okay, that doesn't do that. What does it do that? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. When everything's against me, my back against the wall, holding all the worst cards, I feel 2 feet tall. I'll stand and shout, no holding back. Certainly gives you some colors anyway. It's all a little bit purple. I guess that's because it's a blues tune. I would imagine that's probably why. But yes, you can at least do some colors. But yeah, interesting thought. Yeah. Hang on just a minute. The chat has just jumped monstrously. Mika has another CPU tip. He says, increase your block size when bouncing or exporting to 1024 or 2048 is good. I've never had a problem with exporting anything, and I have my what do I have mine set at? Let me go check. Options, audio setup. I have my device block size set at 256. It's been set at 256 for 7-8 years on 2 different computers, from a Windows 7 computer with 8 gigs of RAM and a quad-core processor to what I have now. I still have it at 256 samples. So even if I'm exporting, the device block size doesn't change. In the processing, the only thing I have with the with the low latency monitoring path is the audio round trip. And I have dropout protection set to low, which is effectively the same as turning it off. I don't need it on this computer. Don't need it. But yeah, the audio device is set at 256. It stays at 256. Has never changed. And I don't know how many exports and mixdowns I've done on this computer, but it's a lot. But it's a good point. It is a good point, especially if you have a slightly lower powered computer. Peter Brooks is here. Hello, Peter. He says, make sure you back up all your music, as yesterday I lost 4 years of my music. I'm very sad. Wow. Yes, hard drives can screw up at any time. Always make a copy, a backup of your songs folder, which has all of your songs in it. Definitely do that. I have my songs folder on 3 different hard drives. And at any point, at any time, I can just go, okay, no problem. I've lost all of those from this particular hard drive. That's fine. I just go and grab that, copy it back. And within about 5 or 10 minutes that it takes to copy them all back onto my drive, I'm back up and running again. No problem. All my songs are there. So yes, I definitely would agree with Peter there. Yeah, the foam does work. Yeah, some people say it doesn't, but yeah. Mika says, I have dual core i7 and M1 Max. The M1 completely smokes them in audio software use. Yes. The M1s are ludicrously fast. Dwayne is here. Hello, mate. He says, I have both Studio Live 3242 8i with the Firewire 800 and a Studio Live Series 3 32R. Can I run Universal Control that will work with either one without reinstalling a different Universal Control? That is a great question, and I don't know the answer to it. Because I don't know that much about what's required. I think the older device, the AI, still requires an older version of Universal Control, whereas the Studio Live needs a different, a newer version of Universal Control to run. So that might present a problem for you, but I couldn't be 100% certain, and my advice to you would be to make a support ticket and put your Studio Live AI mixer as your product when you create your support ticket, and that means it will go to my good friend Jonny Doyle over in Ireland and his team. He is the live sound manager now for Presonus, so he deals exclusively with the mixers and Dante and AVB and all of that. That is his domain, and he has a nice little squad who work with him. So that would be the best thing to do. You ask that question to them. You could also put your question to the Studio Live mixer group on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you can certainly go join that group and put that put it there as well if you'd prefer to do that. You could certainly do it in that group. Let's see. Oh, we are 10 minutes over. You guys are awesome. You kept me going for all that time. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for your handiwork there, my faithful moderators. Appreciate it. So, let's see. Marcus, I'm boring, only giving tips against use so much headphones. Okay. Yeah, you can mix on headphones. I know people that do it. I know people that have won multiple Grammy Awards doing it. So it does work, but you have to, just like with anything, you have to know your headphones really, really well. And know what good music sounds like on those headphones, and it will work. And you just have to take into account how stereo imaging is a little bit different on headphones than it is on speakers. Because, there is a room involved with the speakers that isn't present with your headphones. So, take that into account. Jonny Doyle, yes. Doyle for Jonny Doyle. But yes, put in a support ticket, put your product as your Studio Live AI mixer, and that will mean that it goes to the hardware guys and not to software. We get that quite a lot, is people not appropriately putting the correct product in when they create a support ticket. You have to be careful about that. So there we go. I think we're done. And Sean Aaron says he's looking forward to a song challenge. I intend to do one. I need to have a think about it and see kind of how we should go about it. So if you guys have some ideas on the stipulations for the songwriting challenge, then by all means email me your suggestions, and it would be great if this was like definitely a completely Jonny Lipsham Studios community thing, from start to finish. That would be awesome. Anyway, I think it would be great if I could now go to bed, because you can probably see from my eyes I am suddenly out of gas. So I will see you all on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified with Jonny Geib, and it'll either be here or it'll be on his channel. I think his internet woes are behind him now, so it's more likely going to be on his channel, which is cool. So I'll see you then, and then next Sunday we'll be back here for more fun and frolics in this room. All right, folks, thanks for coming. Really appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. You rock, every single one of you. So that includes you over there. Yes, you. Yes, I'm pointing to you. You rock. You are awesome. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Bye for now.
When everything's against me, my back against the wall, holding all the worst cards, I feel 2 feet tall. I'll stand and shout, no holding back. Do or die, gonna dig myself a hole. Oh, do or die, gonna dig myself a hole. Now I'm hanging tough, and I'm never falling back. When defense fails, I'm going on the attack. I stand and shout, no